Welcome to a brand new section. This section is all about object-oriented programming. Even though the name sounds pretty big, but the concept is not so difficult. Some of the main aspects of object-oriented programming are classes, instances, inheritance, and polymorphism. So I would be covering all of those inside this series. Let's go to our code editor and let's start creating some classes. Behind the scenes, I have created one more folder called as 06 oops, and inside of this folder, I have created a file called as basic.py, and I have posted some documentation right inside this file. First, let us create a class and then we will see what is it all about, and after that I will come to all of this documentation. So let me collapse my sidebar. So let me go below and let us create our very first class. So we can use the keyword of class followed by the name of the class. Let me just call it as some class. I don't care the name right now. The next line is for the documentation of the class. So let me add some documentation saying that defines an empty class. And inside of this, I don't want to pass any logic for now. I want to keep the body as empty. So I can simply say pass. And that's it. We have created our very first class. Let's try to print it out and see what output we are getting. So I can say I want to print out some class. Let us save it and let us try to run it. And here we have the output __ main __ dot some class. Now this output looks a little bit cryptic and we will take care of these things in the future. But what this is trying to say is in the main file, there is a class called as some class. So this some class means this class, and this __ main __ simply means the main file. Now this is just a naming convention. Whenever we execute some Python module, Python behind the scenes names the main module as __ main __. So this double underscores are also called as dunders. Python makes a lot of use of these dunders and we would be seeing them shortly. Let us go back and create some more classes. Let me put a separator. Let us create a class which represents a person. So I can say class followed by the name of the class. Now remember, the name of the classes are in Pascal case. That means the first alphabet of each word has to be capital. If you check this class, my S was capital and C was capital. Just make sure you always follow this convention whenever you want to define a class. Now let's go right over here and create a class of person. Let me add some documentation that this class defines a person. Now let's try to imagine a structure of a person. Every person has a first name and a last name. So let us give these properties to our class of person. And we can do that by using a dunder method which is called as init. Now don't fuss over what is this method, what is a class, and whatever I'm going to show you right now. This video is just to show you what is a class, and in the next video I will explain you all of the things which are happening behind the scenes. Right now just go with the flow. The first function inside your class always has to be a special function by the name of dunder init. So this is how you define it. Define dunder init dunder. This is just a naming convention by Python. We have a dunder in the front and dunder at the back. There is nothing special about this function. This is just like your regular function, just that we have a different naming style for this one. Now since this init function belongs to a class, the first argument should always be self. Self actually acts like a reference. It means the instance of this class. Again, don't worry, I will explain all of these things in the next video. This function of init is going to accept two more parameters. The first one would be for the first name of the person. The type is going to be a string. Next one would be the last name, again a string. And always remember that this init method returns nothing. So the return type is going to be none. And inside, let us see how we can construct a person. Here we have to say that self dot first name is equal to first name. So what I'm trying to do is I'm just taking the first name and I'm creating an instance variable called as first name. Now this can be anything. I can also name it as fname and I can write this as fname. It doesn't really matter. The same goes for this one. You can call this ABC. It doesn't matter. But if you're writing ABC over here, then this also has to be ABC. But as a convention, it is normally self. And let me change this to my first name. Let us create one more instance variable for the last name. So I want to say for my instance of a person, so that means for self dot last name is equal to last name. So the same thing, I'm taking the last name from my init method and I'm creating something which is called as an instance variable right over here. Now let's see how we can work with this class. So I want to say my first person is a type of person. The first name is Louis. The last name is Zappa. Let me save this and let us try to print first person. That's it. Let me comment this out. I don't want this one. And let me run this file. And here we have one more cryptic output saying that it is main.person object at so and so address. If you have seen my last lecture about higher order functions, you can make it out that this is a hexadecimal address for this object. Let us go back and see if we can improve this one. Let us create one more dunder method. And this time the name of the dunder method is called as underscore repr. So this stands for representation underscore and self. Always remember the first argument by default inside a class should always be self. Now this is going to return a string. So I'm going to put a string over here. And let me just say return, and I am going to return a string. So I can just say inside my quotes that this is a class of the type of person. That's it. Just save a file and try to run it. So this time we have a much better output. So this underscore init and underscore repr, these are also called as magic methods. Python is always going to look for this magic methods whenever it has to create an instance of the person class. Let me add some documentation over here. So this magic method of repr is also known as the official representation of your class. Now let's see one more magic method. Let us open up the terminal one more time. And to be frank, this output doesn't make much sense except that this is saying it is just a class of the person. It is not giving any details of which is the person, what is the first name, what is the last name, and so on. But we can improve this by using one more magic method, and this time the name of this magic method is underscore str. So I can say define my str. So this str simply means for the string representation of the class, and as a convention it has to accept self as the first argument. This method also returns a string. Let me add the documentation saying that this magic methods provides string representation of an instance. I will explain all of these things in the next video, instance and classes. Right now just go with the flow and complete this video. So here I can say I want to return a string. Let me construct one string by using our string formatting. So I can say person. The way to get the first name and the last name is using this syntax, self.first name. Inside this curly brackets, I simply have to say I want to get the first name of this instance. So self is acting as a reference It is telling Python, I want to fetch the first name of this particular person only. So let us have the last name as well. So we can say self dot last name. Let us save the file and let us try to run it. So this time we have a much better output, and this output also makes some sense that this is a person and the name of the person is Louis Zappa. Let us create one more person. Let me put up a comment first over here. So what we are doing is we are creating an instance of the class of person. Let us create one more person. So I can say the second person would be person. The first name could be CC. Let me get the C capital, and her surname could be Neutron. Let us print it out. Let me print out my second person. Save your file and just run it. And here we have the output. The second person is CC, the first person is Louis. So I think we have learned enough for this first video. In the next video, I will explain all of these things, and hopefully you would have a better understanding of classes.